Hello. It's exactly 4 o'clock, and Fraser wanted to get your attention, but let me start off by saying that those of you who do not know who I am, I'm Bill Penn, President of the Block Island Residents Association. And on behalf of BIRA and the Block Island Times, I'd like to welcome you all here today, especially on this really gorgeous day that it's not supposed to be gorgeous. We have two members of BIRA that are circulating, Tom Doyle and Norm Koff, who will take questions from you. You need to write them out, and then we'll ask those questions towards the end of the session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fraser, our moderator.
I first would like to thank all our candidates for coming today, and secondly to thank the audience. You never know on a beautiful day like this what kind of an audience you're going to get and how many people are going to go up there beach day. But I'm reminded of a story of Winston Churchill, who was at a political rally, and the woman who was in charge said, "My goodness, Sir Winston, look out there, look at this crowd, look at how many people are here." He said, "I'm flattered, madam, but I know that if the crowd would be twice as large, I would be hung." Asking you all to please turn off your cell phones. If a cell phone rings during these proceedings, you will be immediately approached by one of the gentlemen in the back, and you will be doing beach cleanup. I want to thank the school, and particularly Scott, who's in charge of the maintenance here, for setting this up, and the school for making the facility available and the loudspeaker system and so forth. Tom, where's Tom? There, and Norm in the back are available to, if you have a question, hold up your piece of paper, they will pick it up and they will bring it over so that we get them for the last 15 minutes of the proceeding. If you don't have a piece of paper, they have paper, so raise your hand and you get a piece of paper. And pencils. Okay? Donna Corey will be the timing and giving the candidates a warning about how much time they have left to either answer the question or to respond. And you will notice John Barry is filming the proceedings. If all goes well, and we did not announce this ahead, the entire debate will be available on the Block Island Times website to be viewed. Quick review. For the first 45 minutes, we're going to have questions and presentations from the two candidates for first warden. Bill Penn from BIRA and Pippa Jack from the Times will ask the question. The first 45 minutes will be, as I said, the candidates for the first warden. Each of these two candidates will have 5 minutes for an opening statement, and then questions will be asked of each in turn by Pippa and Bill. The person questioned has 2 minutes to respond, and then the other individual has 30 seconds to comment. So without further ado, I'm going to ask, I don't know who's asking the first question, Pippa. Sorry. I'm going to ask Powell to give his opening statement. And you have 5 minutes.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Howell Cronin, and I thought I'd at least start with a brief background of when I came to Block Island originally and some of the things I've done personally and how I became involved with town affairs at a very young age. I came to Block Island full-time in 1968 and attended Block Island School in 68 69. I was a Block Island School photographer during those years. So I have a long history with this Block Island School and have seen the evolution of it and the story that we currently have. I have 9 children, and 4 children are currently in the Block Island School. I have 2 of my older children attended Block Island School. One graduated in 2010 and is now a student at Brown University. My wife and I are very proud of Block Island School. We'd like to continue working very hard for it. It does a good job for our children and our community. After school, I started directly into construction and worked full-time and started a company called Omni Associates, which I still operate today. Interestingly enough, today I also work in software development. I have a U.S. patent pending, but that started too in Block Island School, where a teacher by the name of Wes Hinman started me out on an Olivetti programmer, which was a small computer that had a paper tape that we used to program. But he started the bug, and the bug's still with me, and I'm still working with it. So computer programming, then it started with the Block Island School, and it's the future of our country. And our children have a very, very nice computer lab in the school, in which they can learn the trade that they need to and work with the facilities that they have here. Because we have a good, well-funded school and a well-operated school. During my earlier years, and this is back in the mid-70s, I actually flew for New England Airlines. So I have a familiarity with some of our transportation needs. Interestingly enough, I asked Bill Bendokis for years and years if I could fly for him. I wanted to be an airline pilot. He said, as soon as you get your pilot's license, as soon as you get your commercial license, as soon as you get your instrument license. So I got all my licenses, and I called Bill up and I said, Bill, I have my license. I have my commercial license. Can I have a job? He said, yes. He said, get in the plane, come over to Westerly. Here's your first job. I flew over to Westerly. And for those of you that know Bill, you notice he has a rather dry sense of humor. He goes, oh, by the way, and sort of a Peter Falk manner, pack an overnight bag, which I did. So I went to Westerly. He said, see that Stafford charge? I said, yes. And he says, charge flight to Wichita, Kansas. That's your first job, which I did. So that was my first job flying for Bill Bendokis. I also served on the Block Island Police Department for 6 years as a summer reserve officer and a part-time winter officer. So I have a lot of experience in law enforcement. I worked with Paul Riker for many, many years, Bill McComb, and I'm very familiar with the trials and tribulations and needs of the law enforcement of Block Island. I became quite interested in town affairs. I think it was something of a hobby, or maybe I was something of an activist as a youngster, which maybe I still am. And in order to get involved with that, I started a small year-round newspaper called the Block Island Deepwater. And our first subject was the town water supply. And actually, at that time, it wasn't the town water supply. It was a private water supply owned by Jack Gray and the gentleman who owned the Island Man Resort, Frank Joseph. But there was a chronic boil water order in effect, off and on, almost all summer long. It was hampering business. And I got a call from a good friend of mine, Lake Jimmy Mitchell, one morning, who watched the water company and said, you want to see the source of the water problem? I said, yes. He said, meet me at 6:30 tomorrow morning. We went up there, peered in the old wooden tank, and on the top was a layer of dead starlings floating in the tank. That was my first page, I think, on the opening page of the Block Island Report, which a young fledgling councilman by the name of David Govern, who was just getting started, took a bag of frozen starlings and dropped them on the town council table at the next town council meeting, much to Jack Gray's chagrin. Well, at any rate, we formed the Block Island Water Study Committee, of which I was the chair. We found the Farmers Home Association grant to purchase the water company, which the town did, and the rest is history. We have some of the best water quality in the state now. I was also very, very interested in historic preservation. Building was just getting going, and there was concern about some of the new building types. So I worked with Jerry Abbott in the Block Island Historical Society and went to Nantucket, looked at what they were doing, and became the chair of a 2-member committee with myself and Herman Hassinger, and started the very first days of the Historic District Commission. I was emergency management director for 10 years, and so I have a lot of involvement in that area also. I've been a member of the Block Island Fire Department for over 40 years, and I still operate Omni Associates, as I said. I developed a website for the Block Island School that I donate and operate at free of charge as I do the Block Island Fire Department. And that's a bit of my background. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Howard. Kevin?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. And as you heard, my name is Kim Yackett. And I'd also like to thank the Black Island Times and the Black Island Residents Association for hosting this every week, and for coming out on this beautiful day. And Bill said it's not supposed to be. Every day on Black Island is supposed to be gorgeous, even as it's raining. I can do it that way. I think many of you know a bit about my background, but I did grow up on Black Island. I'll just do it really quickly. I went to school here. This room wasn't here when I went to school here. I was in the top 6 of my class, went on to college, and ultimately got a BS, a Bachelor of Science in Biology and Environmental Science at the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. I moved back in 1982 and have to do 2 things. Work with my grandfather on the Black Island Economic Development Foundation's PEAT study. They were looking at energy resources, and what we might be able to do for energy on Black Island back in 1982. They'd already looked at the possibility of incineration, and that was a big issue back then. And I also worked with Black Island Economic Development Foundation when they started the barn, which has now been upgraded to the Spring Street Gallery. But it was truly a barn that was resurrected from the Harbor Baptist Church, and it was a great time to be coming back to Black Island and working in things that were meant to be helping Black Island community do things that were not just tourist related, also economic development. I've done a number of things, from drive to school bus for 21 years, to starting a printing business, which I must say is in dormancy right now. But who knows? Maybe I'll have more time in the future to get back to letterpress printing. I have a great love of the environment. I was lucky right after my previous time on the town council to become involved in the Ocean View Foundation, which was started by, as most of you know, Josie Murph. I ended up being the director, and am currently the director of the Ocean View Foundation, which does environmental education on Block Island. Everything from natural history to sustainable building issues to how to keep a community sustainable, not only from the wildlife, but, let's just say wildlife, including the human condition. I feel extremely fortunate to be on Block Island and be able to pursue what I love to do, the place I love to do it, and then get involved in town government where I can not only be hands-on in the field, but also hands-on in the policy setting and moving the island in the direction that I feel quite dedicated to. Had a recent bumper sticker put out, and it says, dedicated, a lifelong dedication to Block Island. People ask, why are you running for again? And I say, well, I'm still dedicated, and I still have a great urge to serve the community, and that's why. I will make one comment. I will have to leave today exactly on time, and it has no reflection on anybody here, but I am committed way back last winter to perform a wedding at the Spring House. And although I'm sure the bride will be late, that's always the case, I don't want to be. So please don't take it as any kind of indication of the other. I wish much rather be here and hear that my follow-up future council members speak.
Now we'll begin our questions with Pippa asking the first question. And just a reminder, the individual asked the question has 2 minutes to answer, and then the other individual has 30 minutes to comment. We also have a series of questions that are simply yes or no. And if we have opportunity to do that, we'll do some of those, so there's no real time limit. And finally, the last few minutes of this session, which is going to end precisely in 30 minutes, we will be asking questions from the audience. So again, if you have a question, raise your hand with a piece of paper you filled in, or request a piece of paper. Tom and Norm will pick it up and bring it over here to Betty. She'll be sorting them, and then I will ask the questions from the audience. We'll pose those questions. So, Kevin.
Hi. Can you guys hear me? This question's for Howell. Howell, how do you see the role of First Warden as distinct from other positions on the Town Council? And can you tell us why you're the person to do the job?
Technically, I think the only difference is you set up the agenda, from what I can read in the charter. However, from a practical perspective, the First Warden is really the the day-to-day connection between our elected official body, the town council, and our town manager. And the first warden, I think, is going to spend a significant amount more time than the other council members. I see the job probably being a commitment of at least 2 hours a day, which is a fair amount of time for a volunteer position. But I think historically, the first warden has been a partner with the town manager and the town staff and the town hall, and one of the main connections between the public and the governing body of the town council. And what was the second part of the question?
What makes you the right person to do the job?
Well, I'm not sure I am the right person, but I was asked by a number of people to do this job. And I think that I will commit the time. I think I certainly have the experience in a number of different town functions and assets and agencies and bodies. I've been involved with it for many, many years. And I think that I have a slightly different perspective on getting things done, and I have a lot of experience in the business world. And I think I'm probably one of many people in the community that could do the job. I just stepped up to the plate this time and threw my hat in the ring, and I'm proud of the opportunity to do it.
And I'm to follow up. Is that right? Okay. I think actually Howell has it, in terms of the differences right on the head. It's one. Every council member has one vote, so there's no difference in the number of voting. It's not exactly just setting up the agenda; it's running the meetings, and it is the town. I also see the first warden as a position of liaison between management, the town staff, and the people, and to answer the phone, which rings a lot of time, and get the initial complaints onto the table so that it can be discussed by everyone.
Bill, second.
Kim, Verizon Internet Service, DSL wireless, is slow, unreliable, and in some parts of the island totally unavailable. Would you, as first warden, actively lobby Verizon to upgrade their DSL and wireless service to mainland standards?
As first warden, as the town council, and the town in general have been doing that already this year, trying to get it upgraded. We've established, and I know through the work of, work closely again with the town manager, Nancy Dodge, established a contact person for complaints and a way to upgrade service. And we are actually in the process of trying to do that now. It wouldn't be a matter of doing that in the future. We're trying to get that service upgraded now. We are hopeful, of course, in the future that possibility of a cable with fiber optics will be available to us, and that will certainly help a lot of vendors add to the services. But it's not a matter of will we try. We're trying now to do that.
I think that the internet is probably one of our greatest shortcomings on Block Island and one of our greatest needs. We are remote, and you couldn't have anything more important than a good internet connection that all age groups and our school, our government, our seniors, medically, business-wise, it's probably one of the top items. So I would address that extremely aggressively and put it at the top of the list, along with utility costs.
Kim, this one's for you again. Do you feel that the town has an adequately high profile in Providence? And if not, who would you reach out to, and how would you go about making it better?
I actually do think we have a good profile in Providence, and if you say in Providence, you mean with state government. We have an excellent working relationship with our state government representatives, Senator Sosnowski and Donna Walsh. They are both a phone call away. I speak with Donna Walsh especially on a very regular basis, pursuing legislation, pursuing other problems that individuals may have on the island. We also have a very strong relationship right now, I do, with the head of the director of the DEM, Janet Coit. It's been Ann with some of the people who work in her department, Kathy Sparks, Larry Morazian, others in DEM who have helped us with parking issues in the Point Judith, but also, of course, deer hunting, deer management, hunting in general. And I think for the things that we care about, we have a strong relationship. That also goes for CRMC. We have good contacts at CRMC for coastal issues, as well as DEM, as I mentioned, for freshwater wetlands issues. So in essence, it can always be improved, but I think we have a very strong relationship at the points that we need to have them for the issues that affect Block Island.
Okay, Hal,
has
I'm sorry.
I think I would increase and step up the lobbying efforts that we have upstate, principally in the areas of taxation relief for our businesses, grants and funding. Kim's mentioned many things that have been done. A lot of them are environmental. Our businesses need help, and I would step up the lobbying effort significantly.
Okay, my question. Hal is a graduate of Block Island School and having children at Block Island School. The school has the highest cost per student at around $36,000 a year, which is double the average for the state. Would you support letting students take accredited internet classes to reduce or stabilize the on-island teacher costs?
I'm not quite clear how that would offset the cost, but I have been promoting student distance learning for many, many years, actually. I have worked with the technical committee, and I've worked with Matt Moran, and I've tried to help with some of the concepts of distance learning. I'm not quite sure how that would relate to bringing the cost of education down. I think we have a fixed overhead in the building and the machinery that's going to be here anyway, and I'm not sure that would relate to the cost of per student education. But it certainly brings a vast array of different types of education that we can't afford. Certain specialty teachers, students that excel in particular areas, students that have particular areas of interest that we just don't have the expertise or time for. So it's sort of a double-edged issue. I'm not sure it will save us money. It certainly will help with our student education.
And I largely agree that the use of distance learning and internet and video, live video classes is definitely a good thing to add to the opportunities at the school and the students. But it's not a replacement for the classroom teacher, and I don't see that in any way reducing the need for teachers or cost for teachers.
Kim, as the island approaches its 50% conservation goal, what comes next? Should things change?
You mean the goal?
Yeah.
I don't actually see the goal changing. I think 50% is extremely, it's a great goal to have and to set for you, but I can't imagine, I don't think it would be good for a year-round community that includes human resources to have more than 50% in open space on Block Island. We are at 43, and we've been at roughly 43 for a long time. I think that last 7% is going to be a long time in coming. But along with conservation is stewardship, and I would say that the next sort of phase, once the 50% and before the 50% is reached, is stewardship of those lands and how they're managed and which lands are available for public access and which ones are reserved more for less public access because they're there for the diversity of a species or preservation of a habitat or ecosystem type. So as we move away from saving the land, we need to move towards greater and more active stewardship, conscientious stewardship of how that land is to be used for both wildlife and for human resources.
I would say that was well said, and I would pretty much agree with everything. In fact, not pretty much. I agree with everything Kim said, and I think it was thorough, and I think we're right on target with that.
Hal, this summer, the deer tick population exploded because of the warm winter we had last year. In fact, one of our members wrote me saying that she removed 26 ticks during the summer and was infected again with Lyme disease for the 4th time. Would you support taking local control of hunting and using proven hunting methods to eliminate the deer herd once and for all?
Well, I'll tell you, this is one of these situations where I would defer to people with more expertise than myself. We have a task force that has spent a tremendous amount of time researching this subject. They have a proclamation to drastically reduce or eliminate the deer herd. They have met with many of the state officials, maybe all of them. They have met and spent many hours with local hunters that know the land and know the problem. And, one of my methods is it's really not my ideas that are really that important. It's the people's ideas. And this task force has met publicly and had a tremendous amount of input and debate and discussion. So as first warden, I think I would probably participate in as many of their meetings as I could, but I would defer to their judgment. It's really not up to me. And I think that although it's a vote of, I'd be one vote of 5, I would like to think that ultimately there would be a consensus that would come from all the research and study that our deer task force has undertaken.
And I would just add that the management of the deer herd it's just a very long time issue. I think I largely also agree that the Deer Task Force has done a lot of good work on this, and they've actually helped the town get to the point where we're expanding some of the hunting properties available this year, and I think steps are being made. Eradication of deer, to me personally, seems, if not impossible, almost impossible for complete eradication. And the resources it would take to get to that point would be I think money could be spent in better ways. But we do have a lot of local control, and I would continue to support more and more local control. We do have to work with the DEM on this issue, and I do not support trying to separate us from the DEM.
Howell, this is another two-parter. The Block Island Health Services Management Agreement is up. 2 questions. Should it be required to follow state open meeting law? And can you give us a quick sketch of what open meeting law is and what it entails?
Well, this is an easy one. It's an absolute yes. There's no question that the Block Island Health Services should be operating in a fully transparent environment and should be complying with all of the open meeting laws in the state of Rhode Island. They, in my opinion, are a quasi-public body. I've suggested many times that they ask for an advisory opinion if they don't think they are. And whether they are or they aren't, the public has spoken and clearly wants them to be. And it is our facility, and I think that in that regard, it's their duty to act as a public body and meet all the open meeting laws. That said, I want it to be very clear that in the state of Rhode Island, and I know these laws very well, they've been a subject of a lot of discussion lately, there is not a single law in the state of Rhode Island that requires any public meeting to ever be in closed session. Ever. Not one. Not for personnel issues, not for contract issues, not for land acquisition issues, absolutely none. I think there's way too many closed meetings by our town council, and I would try to have none, if at all possible. Certainly a drastic reduction. So that pretty much sums up the open meeting laws, which if there's any lawyers in this room, I think they would agree to that. So the open meeting laws are there for a purpose. The public provides valuable input, especially in this community where we have tremendous resources, experts and retired business people in all kinds of facets of professional subjects. And I see the public meetings as an asset, not a detriment.
just a quick follow-up. Regarding the management agreement, it is a town-owned facility, but the body, BIHS, is not a public body. And I do support the town having in its contract the provisions, a requirement for the provisions of the open meeting law, but not necessarily an outright statement that it has to abide by every single aspect of the open meeting law, some of which are very obscure, like it must be posted on the Secretary of State's website. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in open meetings, minutes, things like that. The provisions of the open meetings law are the things that we should be looking at, not the technicality of the open meeting law. But it's not a public body, and they have every right to, but since we have a management agreement, we should ask for it in our management agreement.
Kim, many communities throughout Rhode Island have emergency alert systems, reverse 911, sirens, etc. Do you think there should be an emergency alert system here on Block Island, and in what form, and would you work to implement one? I'm sorry, it's the wrong one. Many communities in mainland have emergency alert systems, reverse 911 or sirens, etc. Do you think there should be an emergency alert system here at Block Island, and in what form, and would you work to implement one?
I have to say this is probably an area that I don't know an awful lot about it in terms of exactly what the terminology of reverse 911 is. If that's a system such as they have a lot of schools where there's a robocall says there's snow days and it automatically goes out, I may be completely missing the boat on what that is. We have a very good communications dispatch system here. We used to have a siren, as many of us probably remember, at the police station. I'm not sure in this day and age of cell phones and advanced technology that a siren or an emergency alert system per se is what we need. But that's something I need to know a lot more about. That is not something I've been spending a lot of town government time on. It's something I have to reserve comment for till I understand what it is and what it's meant for and what it costs and what it does that we can't do now in a less formal way.
We absolutely need much more in the way of mass notification of potential problems on the island. When I was emergency management director, I purchased the siren that we used for many, many years. It has recently been decommissioned. I actually climbed up there myself and Peter Blaine and installed it. It had fallen to the wayside because of maintenance. The fire department has just implemented a brand new text paging system, which was explored by myself, Chief Payne, and John Bates, which we just put into service a week ago. And I do think we need a siren, unquestionably. These are all backup and redundant emergency notification systems that we need to have in place. We have an obligation to have them in place.
We'll have one more question from, from Pippa, and then I'm going to ask some questions that have come in from the audience, then we'll see where we go from there.
Okay. Howell, should the town take a position on Deepwater wind as it moves through the permitting process, coastal resources and the Army Corps? And please tell us how you see the project and its importance to the island.
I think the town has taken its position on Deepwater wind, and it's sort of an after-the-fact question. I think that the town one day will have a electric cable to the mainland. I think it's essential. How it should have already been here. How it gets here is another matter right at this moment, and how it gets paid for. Deepwater was a subject of some controversy, and I don't personally have a position on the Deepwater project one way or another. I hinge it on the electric cable. If we get a free electric cable as a result of this, I think that has to be weighed very heavily against some of the potential drawbacks as to aesthetics. But I think that that's been addressed by the current council, and I think that everything Block Island is going to address has been addressed. I think Deepwater is currently working on some of the aspects of adding or upgrading the fiber optic cable, which I was glad to hear about. I'd like to think that I was partially responsible for prodding that a little bit in recent meetings. And I think as a result there was a response, and I think that's a good sign. So as far as Deepwater itself, I think our policy is set, our lease is there, and I think we'll proceed and see what happens.
And I'll just follow up by saying that Deepwater Wind has recently submitted its full application to CRMC, so there will be a hearing process, and I think it would be a good time for the town to take town council to listen to the people and take a position as to some of the hearing proceedings, especially regarding things that we still care about, making sure the cable's there, making sure the fiber optics are there, making sure the escrow accounts for removal if and when the machines need to be removed in the future. And I wish I could speak a lot more about this, but I've just been told my time is up.
Our timekeeper is doing an excellent job. All right, the first question from the audience, and this will be directed to Kim, I believe. What do you feel needs to be done in terms of maintaining our infrastructure, and do you believe that the job... Are you hearing?
No.
No. If you have a question, this was done at the beginning of the meeting. If you have a question, please raise the paper. They will come and pick it up and bring it over here to be asked.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim, what do you see as the critical needs for maintaining infrastructure on Block Island, and do you believe that the job has been well handled to date?
And by infrastructure, I assume they're talking about town buildings, not infrastructure like roads and
It doesn't
utilities.
specify, but I would think you're in the right.
You know, I think every town has a lot of buildings now and a lot of property to maintain. Maintenance is critical, and I do think that is something we have to continue to monitor. We need to get a process, maintain a process in place for keeping up our buildings. We have done an awful lot in capital improvements over recent years. We're sitting in a new school. There's been additions to the library. There's been work done in the public restrooms, that we have a brand new dock. The police station is not that old. The rescue barn, through the work of the volunteer rescue department, is done. There's a lot of new work. Yes, there's always something more, but unfortunately the hard part of the job is prioritizing. You have to figure out where, it's triage. What is our most important assets, and who do they serve, and what is next on the list? And then we have to maintain those. So I do think that it's been a good job. We've done a good job with that. There's always more to do. There's a lot of discussion now about the fire department, the fire building itself. We've been waiting, putting more money forward to try to assess how big that problem is. And there's money in the budget right now for assessing that, so that building, which is probably our next building in need, we can consider what the next steps will be. But every time we add to the capital costs, of course, that's a taxing issue as well. So we have to figure out where to spend our money, where we can get grants, how we can best use the monies that we can raise locally, and not to just. You have to decide when you do a maintenance and when you cut your losses and plan for a full reconstruction. And I think I'll cap it there. 10 seconds.
Okay, no.
This is one area where we are not going to agree. The maintenance of our town buildings has been abysmal. It doesn't exist. I've seen many of them. I've seen the problems. I've attended the meetings where the stewards of those buildings have pleaded for money, and it's absolutely abysmal. Then damage occurs. It costs more and more. It's a sinking process. I say less money for lawyers, more money for maintaining our buildings.
Question to Hal. Do you believe that the issue of beach access, illustrated by the Quinimus Road issue over the last year, has raised an important consideration, and has it been resolved fairly?
Beach access is a critical issue that I think everybody on this island shares. And sometimes it's not an easy issue, and sometimes it comes with its own complications as how to address it. Each particular area has different nuances, it appears. Kunomis Road just had some major issues that has been very highly published, and to the best of my knowledge still isn't completely resolved. Mansion Beach has gone through a tremendous evolutionary period of overcrowding, parking problems, cars, etc. There's issues that have to be addressed, but I think there's absolutely no question that beach access for the public freely and in an unrestricted manner is at the high point of most everybody on Block Island. We all share that. It's not easy sometimes, so we need to continue to work to preserve beach access for the public, and that's where we have to go with that. So, yes.
I agree. Beach access is one of our most important rights on this island for our citizenry, and I actually think that keeping up with the maintenance of beach access is an issue and something we need to work hard at. And regarding the Kunomis, it's not fully resolved as of yet. In some ways, in other ways, it's always been resolved. The town has the same access it always has had there. And if you've been down there lately, you can see that you can find your way to the beach in quite a nice way. It's actually going to improve once the process is done, where the town will actually own land instead of have the right to pass over someone else's land.
Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 questions that require simply yes or no. No expansion. And I believe the first question goes to Kim. Do you feel, or would you favor term limits for council members?
No.
How?
No.
Now that goes to Howell first. Barrington has recently passed an ordinance banning plastic bags from the community as a conservation effort and environmental effort. Would you favor a ban of all plastic bags on Block Island?
No.
Kim?
Yes.
All right. I think we have time for one more question, and we do have to, I know, keep to our time schedule. Let me see, I'm trying to remember who the next person is. It would be Kim. Can you give a grade to the deliberations and decisions made by the council over the past 2 years? And I'm asking you to give A, B, C, D, E, or F, A, B, C, D, or F grade. And if you are to be in office for 2 more years, is there something specific you would like to accomplish in that regard?
Is that a yes, no?
No. A, B, C, D.
A, B, C. I think I have to say it's been an A. This is a council that works very well together. We have worked well with the town manager and the town boards and committees and with staff. And just because we don't always agree with all of those doesn't mean that we don't work well with them and don't have an effective relationship. Another 2 years, yes, there's always more to do, and you can always improve. It's not an A+. I think there's some issues we've been talking about lately need to be more finely refined. One is a process for tracking maintenance. One is a process for bidding out service contracts. I would like to see us get away from the discussion about Deepwater wind and talk more about energy independence locally and how we might do it not only in the production of energy, but also conservation of energy, heating, and other ways, fuel uses, other things that will can make the island more energy independent, not just along the lines of generating electricity.
Oh.
You want me to grade the current council?
Yes.
I'd say B. I realize it's a tough job, and I appreciate the fact that we have volunteers that put a lot of effort into what they're doing. It comes with its trials and tribulations, which I'm learning very quickly. But I think that there's clearly room for improvement, and maybe sometimes that's easier seen from the outside in, especially over the last few months where I've been attending most all of the meetings. And I think there's room for improvement.
Okay, I want to thank these 2 candidates very much for the time they've given, the answers, and their willingness to participate. We're going to do a very quick switch and get the next candidates up to the table, and we're going to Okay. Now, obviously, we have a lot more people to hear from. We're going to change the rules a little bit because we have to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. First of all, I want to thank everybody for making this a very smooth and quick process. And again, thank Donna for her timekeeping. I want to remind you, if you have a question and you don't have a piece of paper, raise your hand, and Norm and Tom will give you a piece of paper. If you then, when you're ready to submit the question, raise your hand, they will pick it up, bring it over to Betty, who will sort them through and give them to me. We have a lot of questions from the audience. We're not going to get to all of them, but I will do my best to make them, to make sure that the questions that are raised are different from the issues that have been raised by the people up here in the front panel. One more reminder how we're going to do this. Each individual will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Then in turn, they will be asked questions. The first question will go to Ken, to Sean, and so forth down the row. So it'll go to Ken, you'll have 2 minutes. All these other people have 30 seconds to comment. Then the next question goes to Sean. They all have 30 seconds to comment. So we have a lot of people to hear from, and I want to get this moving as quickly as we can. And we may also have some yes or no questions in this portion, which is obviously, there's no time limit. It's just as long as it takes you to say one word. So, all right, I'm going to ask Ken then to make his opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ken Lacoste. For those of you who may not know much about me, I live right down at the bottom of High Street, where I can see every ferry coming and going from Old Harbor. It's also kind of strange for being a Republican up here. I'm always on the left, but whatever. My wife Marley grew up out here and teaches at the Black Island School, and we've raised 2 boys, 2 sons we're very proud of. We've raised them on the island here. We built up, we own and manage a marine repair business, a small marina, and a bike and car rental business. Over the course of the last 30 years, I've served on the Harbors Committee, the Juvenile Hearing Board, the Tourism Council, Health Services. I was on the committee that built the medical center. I'm a former captain of the rescue squad, a former secretary and radio officer of the fire department, and I've served in as town moderator and assistant moderator. I was elected councilor at large to the council 6 years ago, and I've served in that capacity until now. If you've attended council meetings, you know I've observed that I'm usually the last one to speak on a topic, and I occasionally am one to throw a cold pail of water over some of the suggestions I have trouble with. I try to do my homework, though, on the agenda items as best I can. This year I've decided to step up to the challenge and responsibility of second warden. Let me clarify that. I'm not running against these gentlemen. If elected, 3 of them and I will each have 1 vote at the council table. We're not strangers, though. I occasionally serve Chris and Terry's outboard motors, and I've hauled Norris's sailboat so we could work on it this summer. I roped Bill McKernan into taking over the Republican Town Committee for me last year and helped talk him into serving on the library board. In my yard, I have a green dumpster, belongs to Sean, as many other businesses on the island do, and I frequently wave at Les if he's sitting on his porch as I pass through Bridgegate Square. 3 of these men and I will have the opportunity to get to know each other a whole lot better as the inevitable byproduct of town council service. As with past councils, we have many challenges coming up. These challenges will include energy, housing, finance, public properties, personal issues, and litigation. I hope all of you will give careful consideration to your choices for all the council seats on November 6th, because Block Island's future depends on it. Thank you.
My name's Sean McGarry. Currently serving my 10th year on the Block Island School Committee. I have 2 young boys, 11 and 14, who are in the school, and I have enjoyed immensely working directly in a form of government that helps them, that helps all of the kids on the island. Prior to that, I was on the preschool the Early Learning Center board. I served as the treasurer of that. Prior to that, I was appointed by the town council on the preschool advisory committee that set up the whole idea with the economic foundation to build the preschool. I was on chairman of the board that set up the bylaws. I enjoyed that work immensely. My kids at that time were in the preschool, so I kind of followed their development in my government service. Prior to that, I was on the Chamber of Commerce board. Probably one of the best, greatest things that we did as a team there was we identified the need for public restrooms. We pushed for and saw the construction of the visitor center in Old Harbor, and we brought the awareness of the need for services to the visitors that come to this island. I enjoyed that job immensely. I enjoyed working with the team of people I was with. And I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to serve on the town council. I enjoy my public service. I can do a great amount of work for all of you. I'm dedicated, I'm committed, I live here, I work here, I have children here, I'm invested in this community. And I hope that you'll vote for me. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Block Island Times and the Block Island Residents Association for this opportunity, and to thank all of you for coming today. My name is Bill McKernan, and my wife Reba and I moved here 6 years ago, and we love it. It's a dream come true living on Block Island. We've been coming to the island since 1971 for over 40 years, and I grew up in the Bronx in New York City, and I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University, where I got my undergraduate in business management, and I got my graduate degree. I got my MBA in finance. I was in the Air Force for 3.5 years. I'm a Vietnam veteran. And Reba and I lived in New Jersey for 14 years, where I worked for AT&T and the Bell system. And then they moved us to Connecticut, and we lived in West Hartford for 22 years before moving here. Before moving to Block Island, I had not ever been in an elected position, but I was always involved in my community and in volunteer work. And since living on Block Island, I am a member of the Block Island Library Board. I'm the treasurer. I belong to Post 36 American Legion, where I am the adjutant, and I'm very excited about running for town council. I have gone to just about every council meeting in recent months, and I think I'm pretty familiar with the challenges and problems that we will face in the next couple of years. And I think that our team of Ken and Terry and myself can do an excellent job in the near future of helping this island move forward. And but I also think, regardless of who is on the council and who we work with, we can be a good team for the island's future. So thank you, and I hope you'll vote for me.
Does that count? Thank you to the Block Island Times and to the Block Island Residents Association. My name is Terry Mooney. My family has a long history on Block Island. My grandfather came over here before the turn of the century. My father was born in 1906, spent his childhood here. Worked at the Ocean View, which is no longer there, the Atlantic Inn. I had the great pleasure also of spending my summers on Block Island. I worked at the beach house beginning at the age of 12. My father rented the concession stand. And in high school and college, I cooked hot dogs and hamburgers at the concession stand. Probably the best job I've ever had. During one of those summers, I actually was a lifeguard, working with Blake Phelan, Cliff Payne, and Danny Hartman as a lifeguard. My last full summer on Block Island was 1967. I had graduated from Holy Cross, picked up a master's degree from the University of Rhode Island, had an obligation to the Air Force, and in 1968, in the winter, I went into the Air Force, and 6 months later, I was in Vietnam. I received the Bronze Star without the V in Vietnam, was reassigned to the Pentagon, and for 3 years, I was the briefing officer for the chairman of the Air Force Chief of Staff, and briefed him and briefed the DIA and also the CIA on a weekly basis. I picked up a law degree, left the military, joined the Department of the Treasury. I was a litigation attorney for them, was recruited by Shell Oil. For 25 years, I was a legal and tax attorney for Shell Oil. I had staff in Venezuela. I had staff in Rio. I had staff in Bakersfield, and staff in New Orleans and Houston at certain times. I have done lots of budget work, hired, fired, and I think I would do a good job on the town council, and I agree with Bill. Ken, Bill, and I think would make a great team on the council. There are lots of very significant issues coming up, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Norris Pike, and I'm a Block Island son. My family first settled Block Island in 1661. Aside from my descendancy, I have two small children, or have had two small children in school on Block Island. They both graduated, and now one is a doctor and one's in law school. Myself, I've been on Block Island pretty much straight for 40 years or so. Builder, design build. I've been involved in local government ever since I was probably 20 years old. First on the sewer commission, planning board, several terms as its vice chairman and as its chairman. Historic district commission as a member and its chairman. Block Island Charter Commission member and as chairman. A number of years have gone by. I was on Block Island Town Council almost 30 years ago, and I think I've finally recovered from that and am willing to give it another shot. We got some good stuff done when I was on the council last time, some positive forward measures. I look forward to hopefully being on the council again and working with these fine folks and hopefully go forward with some good common sense and quite a bit of knowledge of the way Block Island ticks. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And I've been here several... Well, I'm also a lifelong Islander, and I'm endowed with lots of common sense, hopefully. And I have lots of time on my hand, and I would love to get involved more with the machinations of the town of running it. And I just think I could do a good job, and I hope you will vote for me. Thank you.
My name's Chris Warfel, and this is my first run at first attempt running at public office. My background is I have a bachelor's in forestry engineering and a bachelor's in civil engineering, a master's in mechanical engineering. I'm a professional engineer, registered. I have a certificate in finance. And I've been a member of several faculties as adjunct faculty. Those are my educational backgrounds. I've also started two businesses on Block Island. One is Sun Farm Oysters, and the other is the renewable energy installation company under Entech Engineering. And I think it's those experiences that have given me a perspective of what it's like to work with the town of Shoreham from where you sit. It's been hard, and frankly, if I thought that I was certain that there would be 3 people elected, at least 3 people that would make the changes necessary to make this town run better, I wouldn't be running. But I didn't think that was possible, given what I saw. So I decided, basically with about a half hour left, to throw my hat into the ring, because I think I can, with at least 2 other people, make decisions that need to change the way the town is running. It's not been very accountable. A lot of things have been hidden from you, and I've experienced it firsthand, and I'm going to try and change that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now begin the question period, and just to remind you, the first question will be directed to Ken, and he will have 2 minutes, and then everybody else up here will have 30 seconds to respond to that question.
Ken, the town's infrastructure, such as West Beach Road, which is probably the most used by members of the community, is in constant need of maintenance. How would you ensure that there'd be enough funds in the town's annual budget to properly maintain this road and all of the town's infrastructure, whether it be roads or buildings?
That's a bit of a complicated question. I think it's like a 5-part question. As far as West Beach Road goes, I think I've said it in a public meeting. I would definitely be in favor of finding a way to pave West Beach Road, but I would leave a section of it, the first 150 feet or so, unpaved, so that it would be a dirt road, and we would still be able to keep mopeds off it, but then pave the rest of it in order to maintain it, and to keep it a passable road for both the equipment that goes to and from the transfer station and our personal cars. As far as finding the funds go, that's the tricky part. We've explored ways of funding other capital improvements in the past, and you raise taxes or you raise funds somewhere else. We can go to the state to find some funding for the state roads, but the private roads are the town's problem. I've at times I've been sympathetic with the people who don't like the oiling of the roads for various reasons, but at the same time we realize that to some degree it's necessary. Planning the funding is a hard thing to do. If we try to raise rates on certain items in town, such as parking fees and things like that, we get squashed. So I think it's a fine line we have to walk to try and utilize the resources that we have and try and come up with the best compromise. A lot of times in improvements we try to make, we also get the word back that, well, that's just, it's okay, it's Block Island, we don't really have to make it, like Warwick or Cranston. So I think there's a fine line we walk, and we have to do the best we can with what we have without burdening the taxpayer too much, and also without trying to turn it into something that it is not.
Well, I probably drive that road more than anybody. I'm a co-owner of Block Island Recycling. I can tell you the amount of damage that my equipment takes from going by there. I can tell you the noise that the empty dumpsters make and what the residents have to deal with listening to that go back and forth. I know if it were paved, it would ease the burden tremendously on the people that lived in that neighborhood. It would ease my burden on the maintenance of my vehicles. I think it would ease the overall town burden and the cost of material and labor that goes into constant maintenance of that. So over a period of time, you'd see that it would very easily pay for itself. As far as general maintenance and the budget goes, we have a planning board that meets annually to put together a budget and a number of funds, but it always starts out with, okay, we have $100,000, what are we going to do with that? I mean, $100,000 isn't going to touch anything, so there has to be a way of garnering it. Sorry, I'll stop.
Thank you. I agree with Ken. It's a complicated issue, but I think it's an issue of prioritizing what's important to us. And not only the planning board, but we've got to have more input from the voters of Block Island on what the priorities are. The other thing I think is that, for example, on our internet service we were talking about before, I was doing research on internet to rural areas, and there's a government program that spends $4.5 billion, and we're not included. We've got to look for grants and other ways to help pay for things that we need here on the island.
I guess I'm in agreement with everyone else here. I think paving the road after we consult with the people who live on West Beach Road would be a very good thing to do, and I would leave a portion open so that mopeds did not use it. As far as gathering the dollars for it, I think if we look at a line item by line item issue in the budget, there's probably money there that's being used for things that probably don't have the same priority as doing something on West Beach Road to ensure that the automobiles and the efficiency down there are handled properly. So I think with possibly with grants and possibly looking at other things, we could get the job done.
I'm pretty good at throwing curveballs. I think at the time of the present location for the recycling center has come and gone. I would be a proponent of relocating the recycling center closer to town, saving not only a lot of traffic down that dirt road, but a lot of traffic into the neck. And we have a service utility zone. I think it would be more sensible to relocate the recycling center closer and more centrally in the town, saving all that traffic in and out of the neck and on that dirt road.
I certainly think that. We certainly need to pave the dump road, and definitely those two worst hills on Beacon Hill.
I don't think paving is necessarily the correct solution for dump road. I would first say stop using the soy oil. That has created nothing but potholes. And the more aggressive grading of the road would probably be better. And with respect to the rest of the town's infrastructure, just quickly, I think we've built in problems through our bad public works and design process. And if I'm on the council, I'd like to bring them into the current century on how these things are handled.
Sean, more ferries are coming next summer, and there's going to be high-speed service to Newport and possibly scheduled flights to TF Green. Is it time for the town to try to take control of some of its entry points, perhaps by establishing something like a port authority?
I don't think that we should do anything to hinder the amount of visitors that come to this island. The businesses on this island are struggling every day, and every year we see a decrease in the amount of tourism that comes here. We all survive, even the year-round communities survive from the tourist dollars. It generates a need for construction. It generates all of the needs that A, we have to have the medical facilities available to handle it. It provides for our infrastructure. Without those visitors, and without an increase in tourism, we're going to see a serious decline in our overall economy. It's important to me, it's important to the Democratic Party that we develop a year-round sustainable economy, something that's not just focused on tourism, but something that helps the people that live here year-round in the construction industry, but it's all hinged to those tourist dollars. I don't want to see a restriction on the number of visitors coming here. I don't think that it's our place to take control from interstate navigation and their ability to control our port. I am a bit concerned with the state's choice of vendors for the aviation contract to TF Green. We have a dedicated company here that provides air service. I think that should have been the first area of concern. My hope is that we will continue to pursue that issue to some extent.
I don't think we need a port authority. I think we have to do everything we can to encourage tourism here on the island. It is important for us. I did have a letter in the paper several weeks back about New England Airlines because I share Sean's concern of the way they selected that vendor, and that's why I think it is proof that we're not being heard in Providence, and we do need a better voice there. But I do not think we need a port authority, and I think we have to be very careful of pricing ourselves out of the tourists coming here.
I agree we need to support New England Airlines. I was very surprised at the choice of carriers coming into Block Island. I don't think it was fair to New England Airlines the way the process was handled. I don't think we need a port authority. I think the only reason for that would be to hinder some of the activity of interstate navigation. And I agree with Sean. The more people coming here who are spending money, the better off this island's going to be.
Again, let me give you a curveball. I think we're just about at saturation point with the amount of tourism that we've got. We're having a problem handling the amount of tourism that we have. If you can't make it in the 8 weeks that the season is now, it's a damn tough business environment to make a living at. I do favor a Port Authority. I always have, only to oversee some sort of regulation of the amount of people brought to Block Island.
I don't think we...
I think that'll work.
I don't think we need a Port Authority. I think we have enough layers of bureaucracy now. If anything, I disagree with Norris here that we need more tourists, especially after this summer. The tourists were down this summer, if anything. And I'm all in favor of building something like a pier off of the breakwater and capturing some of those cruise ships that go down by. But that's another day.
I'm not sure if I support a port authority, but I think the town of Shoreham needs to be much more involved in controlling our economy and how it evolves. Because I agree with Norris, at some point during the days in the summer, we are at saturation, other times we're not. And it would be nice to see that spread out with a more sustainable economy, as Sean has mentioned. I also agree with everybody here that New England Airlines appears to get short shrift, and I thought the town should have made a much more public display in confronting that with the state decision.
I've been on both the Harbors Committee and the Council when we discussed the Port Authority issue, and both times I believe it didn't fly for various reasons. I think I find it hard to believe that on the average, if you look across the board for the whole summer, looking at the number of people I saw at State Beach on any given day this summer, and the number of people downtown and the parking issues, that we don't have enough people. But I don't want to create another bureaucracy that we can probably do with working more closely with interstate navigation, with New England Airlines, with the state of Rhode Island, and with the other authorities that are already in place. Just make the most of what we have in terms of control.
Bill, the current deer hunting system is not working to significantly reduce the deer herd. Would you support opening up all of the 44% of conservation land on the island to deer hunting?
I have spoken with the Deer Task Force about this problem. There's no question that Lyme disease and associated tick-borne diseases are becoming worse. And there's no question that we have to control the herd. I would definitely support opening up more land to deer hunting. However, having said that, I think what's paramount is we do it in a safe and secure way that would not threaten any of the kids on the island or the people on the island. But there's no question that we've got to be more aggressive in controlling the herd because it's becoming more and more of a problem. And I think if these diseases get out of hand, it could really adversely affect us. So I am in support of that.
I believe Narrative Records on record that they would like to have some elimination of the deer herd. And I think culling the deer herd is absolutely important for health reasons on Block Island. So yes, I would favor opening up.
I believe the question was to open up deer hunting on conservancy or land trust areas. I would think only in the deepest of winter and very well notified. I am in complete support of complete eradication. I think the health effects that everybody has suffered, I think just about everybody has had Lyme disease. If not, you will. If that's necessary, then again, with correct advertising and complete notification so that people aren't walking around getting shot in the meantime.
Ditto. I've been from the very beginning. I've been against the deer, and I think they should be eliminated at almost any cost.
Well, having worked on job sites where we found bullets in the houses that we've been working on, I agree that hunting is extremely problematic on Block Island. However, obviously, The incidence of Lyme disease is very high. The amount of deer is very high. I do not see it practical for eradication of deer. I do agree that it can be significantly reduced, but ultimately hunting on these lands, isn't it the decision of the stewards of those lands as to whether or not to allow that?
I would favor maximizing the land. I know that it's going to be practical to have 100% utilization of all the conservancy land, but I would like to maximize that as long as we do it in a safe fashion. I also want to maximize the number of hunters we have. We got 80 days of hunting now, and I want to maximize and do whatever we can to support and encourage the hunters that we have in order to maximize the effect that they have in trying to attain what we can do along those lines, eliminating as many deer as we can with safe hunting.
I hope I get more than 30 seconds on this question, but I don't think I will right now. But complete elimination of the herd is very important. I started out against that idea. I thought that hunting was an effective way to cull the herd. The way the island is being developed, how unsafe hunting is becoming, it's important that we eliminate the deer altogether.
You're less than 30 seconds.
Terry, the 1% tax on summer rentals, it's created affordable housing, but it's been slow going. Is affordable housing an important priority for the town? And if so, should the town explore other tactics for trying to create it?
I think we have a very fine history here for affordable housing. I think the 1% tax has done a great deal for the benefit of Block Island. When you look at the West Side 20 and what has been achieved for affordable housing on Block Island, I think Block Island, the town of New Shoreham, is at the forefront of affordable housing, and it's extremely critical that we continue to look at the needs of Block Island and the affordable housing necessity. The 1% tax, I think, has been a tremendous asset. I'm not sure if there are any other forms of revenue that currently have to be looked at to determine if we need more money for affordable housing. I think when you look at what's going on with the West Side 20 and other areas that have been opened up for affordable housing, I think the 1% is handling the job quite well.
I'm not sure 1% or any percent would offset the cost of building on Block Island. I think it's probably been effective, but the costs are only going to go up. I think in long term, we have to take a look at just how many year-round people there will be on Block Island in the next 10 or 15 years.
I think the island's done a good job. I think we were the first town to exceed the percentage required by the state, 13% of housing, but we need much more. And if it's only 1% that we're collecting now, I think we need to collect a little more.
Well, as everybody has said, Block Island has actually one of the best track records, if not the best track record in the state in this. But the price of real estate has made it extremely difficult to make greater gains. And honestly, I think it's only through the generosity of people that we have made this great improvement. And I don't know if you can rely upon that for the future. I have not really come up with an idea of how to make us have more affordable housing.
I think the 1% tax on the summer rentals is not overly burdensome. I think it does provide a good revenue source. I think it's very important that we maintain the effort for affordable housing, because I think it's important that we maintain a community on Block Island that has both high-end housing but also supports its summer employees and seasonal employees and year-round employees, so that we have a good balanced community, and I think we're a better society for it.
It's important that we keep the affordable houses that we have in the system now, in the system for longevity. We can't have them turning over after a number of cycles into the general market. We have to find a way for that to stay affordable. Also, we need a larger year-round rental place for people, because when we say affordable, is $300,000 affordable for someone who works at the sewer company making $15, $16 an hour? That's not affordable. They need a place they can live year-round. I see so many people commuting now in the summer, living on the mainland and commuting over for the day. And is that really the kind of community that we want to see and develop and support?
I think that affordable housing is very important for our community for all the reasons that have already been mentioned. I think the 1% is doing a good job. I agree that we should start looking at rental units as well. And I think we do have to be very aggressive in making sure that these units do stay in the affordable housing program.
Norris, one of the methods for residents and businesses on the island to reduce their electric bill is to install renewable energy systems, solar panels, wind turbines. Would you support changing town ordinances to stimulate the use of renewable energies throughout the island?
Well, I'm not so sure that any of our ordinances preclude installation of solar panels or wind energy systems. I do support it. I'm a full proponent of alternative methods, and whatever Block Island had to do to facilitate people making the shift or wanting to do the shift, I would support it. I don't think many of the town ordinances preclude any change, a roadblock.
Same question? Same question, yeah. I'm all for alternative energy, and it's going to be a moot point when they get the windmills in and the power cable to the mainland.
Some of the current ordinances are problematic, but especially for wind. I don't see solar electric or solar hot water ordinances being overly restrictive. There are some minor modifications that could be done on setbacks and coverage that would help. But I think from an economic perspective, when you look at the life cycle costs, these technologies are so much cheaper than what we have now, and if the cable comes in, what the cable would bring to us. So not to have included this in so many of our town buildings and have policies which are incorporated into our energy infrastructure has been a big mistake.
I think while I'm in favor of renewable energy systems, I think the important thing is to establish a good baseline of energy via a cable for the greater good of the entire population. Once that has been established, it'll give us much more opportunities to feed into the system with renewable resources such as wind and solar without jeopardizing the cost of electricity for the balance of the population that may not have the opportunity to upgrade to those systems.
The restrictive ordinances on the construction of wind energy systems has been a hard-fought battle, and it's important. If any of you have ever had to live in the shadow of one or had one that forced upon you, you will understand the immense impact that it makes on your life. I've had to do that, other people have, and we've fought hard to make these restrictions the way that they are. Everybody supports alternate energy on this island. We're all based in conservation. That's our existence. But it's important that we look at feasibility and siting so that we can maintain the rural characteristics of this island.
Yeah, I think that sustainable and renewable energy is certainly something we all support. However, I agree with Sean that we have to be very careful about the aesthetics here on the island. This is one of the last 10 great places, and I think once the cable goes in, that's going to be another advantage that we will not be having to perhaps put up things that aren't very attractive.
I'm against windmills in everybody's backyard. I think we should ensure that the island retains the visual aspect that it currently has, and it has had for years. I think the cable, when it does go in, will relieve a lot of the energy problems that we have on Block Island. I do support solar, and as soon as solar panels can be this size and not radiate the sun back to the sun, there'll be a lot more solar on Block Island, and it'll be less expensive, and we'll get the job done with alternative energy.
Les, people have been hit, seriously injured, even killed walking on Block Island at night. Do you think sidewalks are needed on Chapel Street and in New Harbour? And if so, how is the town going to pay for them?
Well, both roads are state roads, so we can certainly get state funding. And I myself, after driving for 10, 12 hours a day, as soon as it hits dusk time, I go home with the cat because I don't want to kill somebody. There's too many people and bikes in the road. And on the issue of bikes, I'd like to see bikes have more lights on them, and they should follow the rules of the road. And it's very dangerous without sidewalks right now. And especially after someone getting killed on Chapel Street, they should have put one in the next day.
Can you repeat that? I wasn't sure which two streets you mentioned besides Chapel.
Chapel Street and then in New Harbour as well.
Well, I think Chapel Street has a lot of problems besides just sidewalks, but the issue of pedestrians and bike riders traversing the streets in basically unsafe manners is hugely problematic. And enforcement of the lighting requirements on bicycles would be very helpful. A sidewalk on Chapel Street, it depends on which side of the street you're talking about, those kind of things. So, yeah, it's a huge question, a huge issue, and those are just the tip of the iceberg of the island.
As far as legislating, someone once said you can't legislate against stupid. I mean, you can put all the lights you want on bicycles, whether or not people use them is another issue. I think what we might want to do is look at some low power, perhaps solar lights that perhaps better illuminate Chapel Street to help that problem. As far as extending the sidewalk over in the New Harbour area, if funding were available, it could be done. That would be fine. But in the meantime, I think we could do some work on expanding the space on the side of the road between smugglers and the marinas to make it safer to walk over there.
We've been doing a great job on adding sidewalks up and down High Street, Water Street. We've been working on that. I think we're doing a great job. Chapel Street is a necessity. I mean, that's part of our downtown. There's an immense amount of traffic that goes through. The road's very narrow. It's not wide enough for two cars to pass, let alone having pedestrians and cyclists. So something definitely has to be done with Chapel Street.
Yeah, I think that if funding was available for additional sidewalks, it would be a good idea. I think we have to encourage the bikers to use safety. But again, it's very difficult to get people to use common sense sometimes. I think we should really look at our places properly lighted and also encourage our police department to enforce the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I think we can do practical things like that.
If financing were available, I think sidewalks on Chapel Street would be very beneficial for the island. If it's not available and we can do something with LED lighting or some other solar on Chapel Street, I think that would be a great alternative. Cutting back the hedges, going up by the area against it, probably would solve some of the issues in walking in that area.
I'm not so sure sidewalks on Chapel Street would be the answer. Maybe better lighting. There's just so darn many people darting around on bicycles, on foot, even where you do have sidewalks such as Ocean Avenue, people are walking on the other side where there's no sidewalk. They're out in the street, they're walking back to traffic, they're doing everything they shouldn't be doing, but they are, in fact, in Disney World, so how do you manage that? I don't know. Better lighting, I think, might help.
Chris, if Deepwater installs its cable to the mainland, it's going to include a fiber optics cable. Would you support a private or public internet fiber optic system throughout the island?
I've worked on several islands that have had this to consider. And the one that I'm most familiar with is Fox Island Electric Cooperative, Vital Haven and North Haven. And they utilized their fiber optic system. It was actually owned by a ratepayer co-op. And I would support that. I think the internet is a vital tool for many people on this island, for all kinds of services, information. it gets very quiet in certain parts of the island, and it's a great way of socializing for some people. So I think it's in the island's interest to have such infrastructure, and if it could be municipally owned, or in the case of similar to Fox Island Electric, which I prefer, ratepayer owned, 1 meter, 1 vote, so to speak, I think I would definitely support that.
This is one where I said in my opening speech talking about doing my homework. This is one of those issues where I want to do my homework before I make a knee-jerk comment or reaction to the question itself. However, I will say that it is important, I think, definitely important to upgrade the communication system through fiber optic, whether that be a limited system which gets the clear signal to the island and then generates it in some other way, or whether it means stringing fiber optic to every width and breadth of the island. Not sure that's practical. But I would obviously want to do my homework before I made any concrete decisions about which way to go with this issue.
Verizon definitely owes us something better than what we're getting from them. The telephone service is awful. The internet service is awful. If the fiber optics come here, it's my understanding that that's going to fix a lot of the problems with the internet. How we're going to deal with the distribution of the landline service, I don't know. I don't know that landline service is going to survive much longer. I think that as we move more and more to a technological society, we're going to be more dependent on cell phones. But that's not to say that Verizon does not have to step up to the plate and give us what we're paying for.
If I'm elected to the council, I will help to do some research for these people, because that's what my career was with AT&T and the Bell system. I had some familiarization with fiber distribution systems. In fact, I had a meeting with Brian in Deepwater, and I was very glad to learn that there will be fiber optic in the cable. And what we've got to do is make sure that we are talking to the providers, not only Verizon, but AT&T and T-Mobile and everybody that's up on that tower. And we are taking advantage of any providers offered to provide services to us. The other thing I would add is there are newer technologies that fiber does not have to be run everywhere on the island. There are wireless access points that can be utilized. There's new technologies coming out now. We've got to research that, and then we've got to lobby for it, and we've got to make sure it gets installed, because this is our golden opportunity to do it.
My answer is yes, I would support it. Let me give you an example. If we're looking at expanding our shoulder season, we need to have fiber optics out here. The example I have is my daughter works at Ernst & Young. She's based in New York. She lives in St. Louis. She's rarely in the office, but she does a lot of work, like everyone else does now, globally. And you don't necessarily have to have an office, but you need to have fiber optics. You need to have the internet. You need to have that form of being able to communicate with your colleagues. So I think if we're looking at expanding our ability to have people live on the island and have a shoulder season and have a professional group out here, yes, I do support it.
I would be in complete support of fiber optic island-wide. I think more and more people are looking to retire or semi-retire and conduct business here. I think for our younger folks with their educational abilities, fiber optic would be an absolute necessity. So I am in favor, and I would do whatever I could to facilitate that.
I misunderstand the question, because I'm not sure that the council or anyone else is blocking better communications now. I mean, anything to improve them, I think we're wide open to it and helping instead of trying to hinder it.
Fraser, is it time for you to start asking questions?
Well, we have a few more. Why don't I ask a few questions, and then I'll go back to you, okay? I'm going to start with some yes or no questions, and I have 7. So I'm going to start with Ken. And everybody is simply required to say yes or no and answer this. Ken, are you in favor of a town-owned standalone wind turbine?
My time doesn't start right before I start talking.
This is a yes or no.
This is a yes or no. Yes if it's small enough. Sorry. John.
There's not enough information in that question. I would have to say no.
Ken?
Bill?
Bill, sorry.
Okay. No.
No.
Yes. Loud and clear.
No.
Yes, and the size of the one you see at Fisher Memorial Park, I think that's a really appropriate size. Yes.
Okay, Sean, starting with you. Do you believe the town needs a public works director?
Yes.
Bill?
No.
No.
Maybe. We have one.
No, we have one.
Depending on the qualifications of the town manager, you don't need one, but in this case, we
Yes.
definitely need one. Yes.
Okay. Ken?
No.
Bill, do you feel there should be term limits for members of the town council?
Yes.
Yes.
No. No way.
Yes.
Yes, if they can come back.
No.
No.
There have been, this goes to Terry, in order to address congestion problems and parking problems downtown, would you favor turning downtown into a one-way traffic pattern?
No.
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 No, it didn't work before.
No.
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 Anybody? Norris, do you believe that the issue of beach access as specific to Cunimus Cove was fairly resolved?
Yes, I do.
Well, that's a maybe because it's still in the works. So yes.
It hasn't been resolved, so I can't answer.
Yes.
No.
Tough one. Yes.
No.
Les, what grade would you give to the present town council for the last 2 years in terms of their decisions and the way they operated? A, B, C, D, or F?
C.
C.
D plus.
B.
B.
I'd give Ken and Dick Martin an A.
Unqualified A.
And this one goes to Chris. Would you favor a ban on plastic bags on Block Island?
Yes.
No.
Most definitely yes.
No.
No.
No. Conditionally, because they can be used for recycling.
No.
Okay. I'm going to address this question to Ken. To Sean. And I'm trying to put several questions together here, but they all are in regard to the health services. Do you believe that the Health Services Board should be required to have open meetings, and should that condition be part of the town's agreement with the Block Island Health Services?
I take it that this isn't yes, no.
This is not yes, no.
Any municipal or any organization that asks for your funds needs to maintain a certain level of transparency. Whether that means open meeting laws or not, but when you say transparency, that means that where those funds are spent, how they're spent, who's spending them, that all has to be available and open to everyone.
Yes, I believe it should be part of the agreement. I'm on the library board. We're subject to open meetings law. I think it's good government. I think it's good to let our voters know. Again, I agree when you're spending public funds, you got to know how they're being spent, and I definitely think that should be a part of the agreement.
I agree. It should be part of the agreement. I think we've heard this summer from the town that that's what we want. We want transparency. We want seamlessness at the health center, and that's a way to achieve it.
Absolutely. They occupy a town building. They operate with town funds. They are dealing with townspeople on all levels. The town people deserve transparency, and they will get it.
If I should get on the council, there will be transparency in all of the boards, and it'll be set up that way so that there will be.
I'd like to thank Brian for rescuing that bird. I think any entity that takes taxpayer obligations or funded obligations needs to be subject to the Open Meetings Act. And as you know, we have, or may not know, we have several agreements in this town with employees that are not open to public review. I had to go through the Freedom of Information Act to actually, get a hold of these or try to get a hold of these. So you are spending money in all sorts of ways that you have no idea what your obligations are.
I'm in favor of transparency with Block Island Health Services, but I also will temper that with wanting to have the proper safeguards in place so that medical information, sensitive medical information for individuals is safeguarded, and it's not just an open book that someone can go in and request information under the Act and receive, even whether it's accidentally or not, the wrong kind of information. The public information that the public needs in terms of expenditures is one thing, but I want to make sure the safeguards are in place so that that's not abused or that anything is compromised in terms of individuals' privacy rights. I saw this one.
Okay. I'm going to turn it back to our questioners.
This is on ping pong.
Oh, it is. So I guess, Bill, this is your turn. I'm going to ask the same question I asked the candidates for first ward. Do you think Rock Island should have an emergency alert system, like a reverse 911 or siren system?
Yes, I think we should. There are a lot of things today like robocalls and reverse 911 systems. But again, if we get this fiber optic over here and we can talk to providers about various services that they could provide. I remember years ago when we had the cable and there was I think it was Channel 5 and they had the island information and things like this. We have opportunities to put these things in place. And that's why we've got to take advantage of that fiber, make sure the providers hook up to it, and then see what all the services that they can provide to our citizens and to our visitors. I mean, we've got the potential to have an information system for everybody who stays in a B&B or a hotel room or rents a house. There's enormous potential. The whole industry is going to more and more video and high bandwidth things, which is going to require robust connections. And that's why the fiber will be so critical, not only to us, but to the library, to the health center, to the town offices. This is something that we can really utilize, but we've got to make sure we understand what's out there.
The technology is there, and I think it would be a detriment to the town if we did not take advantage of that technology. As Bill said eloquently, if in fact we do get the cable, we're going to have the opportunities to do things like this. And if we don't do it, I think we're shortchanging the people on Rock Island and those who come over here expecting the same kind of service as they have in Maine. So yes.
I'm firmly in favor of low tech. I think we're back to the siren. Bad news travels really fast on Block Island. Usually people know what you've done long before you've done it.
Sounds like a carbon copy of me sitting here. I'd like to see the old noon whistle come back.
I don't think that the question was about the fiber. It's about ability to notify people in emergencies. And from a strategic point of view, I think diversification is pretty key in this. And as many systems as you can manage, that you can have in place to do so is important. And that includes the siren. I actually do kind of miss the whistle.
Norris, that was a knuckleball. That wasn't a curveball. I want to diversify too, like Chris said. I would see a combination of things because everybody that's using cell phones now and not having a phone in their house and that sort of thing. I think maybe a combination of having a whistle that's available, not necessarily a noon whistle. If you own a dog, you know what I'm talking about. But having some sort of whistle system available, having also a dedicated radio station, perhaps the classic radio station or maybe an AM, a low band AM station. We'd be able to access that because everybody's got an AM radio, but not everybody's got a phone or near the phone. So it might be a combination of methodologies.
The town of Charleston is always calling my house and leaving a message about their emergency situations, whether it's open cooling centers or what have you. I think that's a great way through that robo-dial to inform people about the services that are available to them. Although not always are people around their home phone. And I think Hal was right on the mark with saying that we need redundancy in the way that we warn people, because it's imperative that we get the word out to everybody in any way we can.
Chris, you know a lot about renewable energy technology. Deepwater is about to come before CRMC, and that's going to probably represent the town's best and last opportunity to affect the outcome of this project. Do you think it's good for the town? How do you balance the competing feelings that people have about view sheds and power rates, and should the town take a position?
I think the train has left the station for the opportunity for the town to take a position. A position on this should have been taken a long ago, and apparently some people in the town council were taking positions without the public knowing, offering support or testimony in favor of this project.